They say nature always seeks balance. A pendulum swings, a scale tips. But sometimes, when you try to force that balance well, the pendulum keeps swinging, right off the clock face. And the scale, it just becomes a monument to miscalculation. Welcome to the quiet zone. Look closely at this landscape. It seems peaceful, doesn't it? Crisp mountain air. Rivers carving their silver paths. The kind of place you'd put on a postcard right before you realize the postcard is being sent from somewhere very, very wrong. For decades, this ecosystem, let's call it the Emerald Valley, though it's lost its shine, was suffering from a rather common malady. To much success, specifically, the four-legged kind, the deer. They were everywhere. Elegant, yes, but also a furry, ravenous, ecologically disastrous lawnmower collective. They devoured the saplings, stripped the riverbanks, and turned the lush understory into a bland, chewed-up carpet. The forests were starving. So, the wise minds, the well-meaning interventionists, they drew up a blueprint. A classic horror story setup, really. You unleash the cure. And the cure just happens to have fangs and a chilling midnight song. They decided to reintroduce the natural predator. The great gray ghost, the wolf. People cheered. They penned op-eds about the trophic cascade, that beautiful, scientific chain reaction where the return of the apex predator heals the wounded land. And for a while, it worked. The wolves, magnificent, cunning, and terribly hungry, patrolled the valley. The deer, suddenly aware that they were no longer starring in a gentle Disney film, became skittish. They moved faster. They avoided the vulnerable riverside. The aspen trees breathed a sigh of relief and began to grow again. The landscape healed, becoming denser, darker, more like a real forest again, the kind you wouldn't walk through after sunset without a flashlight and a significant life insurance policy. The ecological papers were glowing. Success, it proclaimed. The wolves were thriving. The forest was vibrant. The deer population had regulated. And then, regulation turned into reduction, which rapidly spiraled into vanishing. Now, here's where the dark humor comes in, because you have to laugh, or you'll scream. The experts had calculated the deer population with impressive mathematical rigor. They knew how many wolves were needed to cull the herd to a sustainable number, but what they failed to calculate was the sheer enthusiasm of the wolves, or perhaps, the uniquely profound disappointment of the deer. Think of it like a party. You invite 24 guests, you buy exactly 24 sandwiches. But then, it turns out your guests are much, much hungrier than anticipated, and they've eaten the paper plates, too. The herds didn't just shrink, they evaporated. No, worse than that, they ceased to be. The valley became unnaturally silent. You can hike for miles and miles now and see the vibrant green, the towering trees, the thriving new ecosystem. It is beautiful, it is perfect, and it is utterly, deeply wrong. The wolves are still here, of course. They pad through the rejuvenated undergrowth, sleek and healthy. But their midnight chorus now sounds confused, almost mournful. They are the apex predators in a kingdom where the primary resource has pulled a dramatic, collective vanishing act. Where did the deer go? It's the question everyone asks. Did the wolves become too good at their job? Did the deer stage a protest migration that involved chartering clandestine barges and moving to a state with laxer wolf introduction policies? Or is the truth something more chilling? Something that speaks to the sudden, irreversible tipping point of a man-made natural order? We still find their antlers, bleached white, perfect bone arcs, scattered like morbid punctuation marks across the thriving ferns. But the tracks, the living, breathing, twitching bodies, they are gone, forever. And what does a pack of brilliantly successful wolves do when the buffet closes indefinitely? That, my friends, is when the real story begins. The silence is the killer here. It's a dense, suffocating silence that blankets the Emerald Valley. In the years that followed the Great Disappearance, the wolves adapted. Of course, they are survivors, efficient killing machines sculpted by millennia of need. But their diet shifted. They started focusing on smaller game beavers, elk those that remained, and anything foolish enough to wander into their orbit. But it wasn't enough. There's a certain lack to the air, an emptiness that even the newly thick foliage can't mask. The scientific community scrambled, their collective scratching of heads audible even in the remote labs. Their initial models, those beautiful pristine equations predicting a perfect equilibrium, now lay shredded, much like a failed hunting expedition. The deer population, it turned out, hadn't just dropped to a manageable level, it had suffered a psychogenic collapse. Picture this. Every single deer, constantly hunted, constantly terrified, reaching a point of evolutionary exhaustion. The stress hormone levels in the few captured samples were off the charts. It's as if their collective will to be deer simply atrophied. It's the kind of biological feedback loop that makes you pause and look over your shoulder, even in broad daylight. Nature, it seems, can sometimes be overly dramatic, choosing to quit the game rather than just play by the new, brutal rules. And the wolves. They had become victims of their own stunning, ruthless efficiency. They had succeeded so completely that they now faced a lingering, existential dread. What's for dinner tomorrow? The wolves, for all their magnificence, looked increasingly gaunt. their packs splintering. They were the generals of a phantom army, the rulers of a perfectly balanced, yet utterly sterile, paradise. It's tragic, really, and hysterically ironic. Now the true, unsettling fear is this: if the deer can vanish forever, what comes next? The wolves are desperate, and desperation, especially when equipped with razor teeth and pack intelligence, doesn't remain focused on small, defenseless prey for long. In the towns bordering the quiet zone, the local gossip has curdled into genuine dread. Livestock are disappearing, and not just the ones foolishly left out. We're talking about locked barns, reinforced fences. The wolves are probing the edges of the human world, their massive paw prints a dark commentary on our arrogance. They were brought in to solve one problem, the deer problem, and now they accidentally created the absence problem, which is rapidly evolving into the we are definitely natathatop of Fuchinin. More problem. This isn't about gore. This is about psychological terror. It's as about walking your dog and seeing two yellow eyes reflecting the moon's light from a distance that feels just a bit too close. It's about the profound silence where the deer used to browse, replaced by a low, persistent hunger lurking in the trees. The wolves healed the forest, but they broke the ecosystem in a more fundamental way. They created a gorgeous, thriving habitat for nothing. The great gray ghosts achieved balance by introducing an infinite zero, the complete and utter absence of their primary prey. And now, they're looking for a replacement. So, the question remains, if a beautifully restored forest falls silent, and the ultimate predator is starving, who's next on the menu for the perfect equilibrium? If this chilling paradox of predator and empty landscape has you checking your locks and double-checking the shadows outside, then you've only scratched the surface of the quiet zone's dark mystery. Don't let the silence fool you. Hit that like button if you think humanity should sometimes just leave nature well enough alone. Subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell to track the wolf pack's next desperate moves, and drop a comment below. What animal do you think will vanish next in the pursuit of perfect balance? Watch our next installment, where we delve into the whispered local legends of a ghost herd and reveal what the starving wolves are really targeting near the town's perimeter.